the other big part of this is, how did you become a follower of Christ? When did you kind of accept Jesus?
Oh, it's
to
the
your Lord
same
and
as
Savior?
for black people. You just believe in your heart and confess with your mouth. It's the same.
Oh, yeah.
Rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just playing with you. yeah. And so what happened was I was living in New York City. I'm doing comedy, and I enjoy. Like, I went to New York really to see if I was funny. Because in New York, if you're not funny, the way they let you know is they'll say something like, "You're not funny."
Yeah.
So I moved to New York City, and I wanted to get my comedy career on, and I'm performing. There's a comedy club there called the Comic Strip Live. It is a really hard club to get into for a new comedian. So I'm getting ready. It's finally, just to give you a feel for it, they have an open mic night on Tuesday nights at the time. It started at 7 p.m. Well, comedians who are new in town would get in line at 6:30 in the morning to do 3 minutes of comedy at 7 p.m. Really hard to get in this club.
Yeah.
So it's finally my turn to perform. And right before I get on stage, this comedian named George Wallace walks in. Now, George Wallace is a very established comedian, not the governor, who's no longer alive.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out.
Okay.
I'm sure anyway, so he says, so he comes in, and whenever someone like that comes in, whoever's next gets bumped. I'm next. I know I'm about to get bumped. They're not going to let me perform. But the manager's walking over to me, and I'm all up. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be all bad. And I'm not a Christian at this time either.
Right.
But this is really where God shows up for the first time in my life, or I should say, this is where I noticed him. So the manager walks over to me and he says, "Michael Jr., listen, George Wallace is here. Would you like to go on before him or after him?" That never happens. It never happens. You never get an option. So I was like, "Before him, please." And I go on stage and I do my comedy set, and he comes in and he's laughing as well. And then after the show, there's a bunch of comedians around him, all asking him questions. He leaves them and he walks over to me. And he says, "You know what? You're funny and you're clean." Because at this point in my career, I don't curse. I never cursed in my comedy career. And I don't know anything about Jesus at the point.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Why don't you curse?" And I was like, "I don't know, if my grandmother walk in or something. I don't want First of all, my grandmother is not coming to New York or to a comedy club. Let me just throw that out there.
Yeah.
She had church because it lasts 16 hours a day. Yeah. So he laughed and he said, "You know what, that's funny. I'd like for you to do a show with me and my best friend in a couple nights." I didn't know who his best friend was. It didn't matter. I'm excited. I get to the show. It's me, George Wallace, Jerry Seinfeld. I'm pumped.
Oh, man.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I did 2 shows that night and got 2 standing ovations. And I get into detail about this in the book that they strategically put right behind me right here. That's product placement right there, people. That's the book. Anyway, it's called Funny How Life Works. So I get on stage, have a great time, and I do 2 shows with Jerry Seinfeld and George Wallace, and I got 2 standing ovations. And I ripped. I'm the man. I'm like, yeah. After the show, the club manager says to me, "Hey, Mike, we got a great set. Would you like to go to church with me tomorrow?" I was like, "Church? Why are you messing this up right now, dude? I just got 2 standing ovations. Ain't nobody going to church." Because I went to church when I was a kid, and that stuff was miserable. The dude on stage yelling. He mad. He got phlegm in his throat. He trying to get out. The Lord said, I was like, this is miserable. So I was like, no, I'm not going to go. And then 20 minutes later, his fiance, who was beautiful, she asked me the same question. And I didn't even know pretty people went to church. I got to be real with you. Because there wasn't any at my grandmother's church. So they're like, and then, so this lady, she says to me, she says, "Michael Jr., she had this accent too. She was like, "Would you like to go to church with us?" Yeah. And I was like, I was just looking for a church the other day, man. I don't know. I was just looking for one. And then, so I go to this church, and I can't even find these people who invited me. And then I'm at this church, and it's the Christian Culture Center in Brooklyn, New York. This dude is up on stage, and he's talking about Jesus. That's it. He's just talking. He's not yelling. He ain't screaming. He don't got no perm. Dude is just talking about Jesus. Then he did this thing where he did like an altar call. And he said, if you want Jesus in your life, all you have to do is believe in your heart, confess with your mouth, and Jesus is yours. And I really wanted to do it too. Like I really, really wanted to. But I was like, nah, man, I got to read the pamphlet first, man. I don't know what this is about. This could be some weird little, I don't know what this is. Because I knew some Christians, and they was creepy.
Yeah.
There's some creepy Christians out there.
Yeah.
If you listen to this podcast right now and you don't know any creepy Christians, it's you. Yeah. Your friends know one. Yeah. So I told myself I said, no, I got to read the pamphlet first. So I told myself I'd read the Bible before I became a Christian. I didn't even have a Bible. A few days later, I'm at O'Hare Airport, and this lady just hands me her Bible. You don't understand. We never exchanged words.
Yeah.
She just handed me her Bible. And then walked off like the Lone Ranger or somebody, or whatever example I should use for this demographic of this show. So she walks off, and And I got this Bible, and I'm like, okay, well, I said I was going to read it. I started reading the Bible. First thing I read was the copyrights, the very first page. The Bible was made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Me too. I'm tripping.
Yeah.
Why can we never met before? This is crazy. So I started reading the Bible, and I'm going to church. Reading the Bible, going to church. And I got to the part about the job. I'm like, no wonder I don't want one of them. That stuff is crazy, man. That's why, I mean, I know you got a job, but anyway. So I'm reading the Bible. I'm going to church. And I remember, and I'm putting in like 12 to 14 hours a day reading the Bible now because I really want to get my life over to Jesus, but I told myself I'd read the Bible first. And you don't have to do this. If you're listening, you're like, oh, man, that's what I got to do first. You don't. I just wanted to. I wanted to stick to what I said. So I got to the part in Matthew where it said Jesus died for me. Yo, White Michael, I didn't even know. For real. I didn't know that Jesus died for me. Literally, I didn't know that he died for me until I was 27 years old.
Yeah.
And I read it right there in the Bible. Like, I didn't know. Right there in Matthew, he died. I was like, I had no idea. I've been to church, people, but nobody was teaching like that. So I read it in Matthew that he died for me, and I'm tripping. Then I turn to Mark, and he died again. I'm like, what is going on? What? Luke and John, why they keep killing him? I get to John, I'm like, why are you going back in the garden, Jesus? Like, for real, I wish I wrote that as a joke, but it's actually the truth. I actually thought Jesus died 4 times.
Yeah.
So I remember finishing up the Bible, and I went to the church. It took me 36 days to read the Bible. I remember finishing up the Bible, and I went to church I gave my life to Jesus, ran up to the altar like during the announcements. I didn't want to wait to the end. I'm like, I know how y'all normally do this, but is Jesus here right now? I'm ready to do this. And now I understand some stuff. I used to just think I was funny. I just happened to be funny, but now I understand I'm funny for a reason. Like, there's purpose behind me having this sense of humor. And even some of the setbacks I have, God is using all of that so I can do what he's called me to do, which is to comedically inspire people to walk in purpose.